Živijo, tukaj je Anže, poslušate podcast Aparatus, kjer legitimni člani družbe povejo, kaj počnejo v življenju. Tole pa je 114. epizoda Aparatusa, v kateri je z mano govoril Jarosinski, ki fura mnenje enega najljubših in najbolj smešnih Twitter računov 9quarterly. Se mal pogovarjala, kaj točno dela, kako to dela, zakaj to dela in potem kako promovira zdaj svojo knjigo in pa evente, ki jih dela po celem svetu. Enega tazga je imel tudi pri nas, ne? Tako sem imel tudi šanso z njemu govoriti. Na tem mestu ful hvala živi oziroma Afna Aliveja na Twitterju, ki je omogočila tale pogovor, in pa Radio Terminal oziroma Tomaž iz Radio Terminal, ki je pustil, da sem to posnel v njihovih prostorih. Na koncu pa še enkrat ful hvala vsem, ki podpirate, tako kot vedno rečem, je pa to prvi v bistvu Aparatus, ki je bil posnet v narekovajih na terenu, ne? In pa bil posnet z 2 mikrofonoma in eno snemalkico, ki sem jo kupil, valjda vse z donacijami, ki jih dobimo na aparatus.si/podpri, tako da ful hvala unim, ki ste podprli. Dejansko se sliši razlika v zvoku, jaz sem se že spet ekstra obadal pač s soundom in se res fajn sliši. Yeti je bil tokrat samo za backup, ta moj mikrofon, tako da še enkrat ful hvala. Če bi pa radi podprli Aparatus, popejte na aparatus.si/podpri oziroma na /salca, lahko tam nabavite šalca oziroma nas podprete z mesečno donacijo. Res ful hvala, ker pa lahko takole malo upgradem sound. Zdaj še ne vem, kako bom naprej snemal, ker se treba vsakič kaj novega naučiti, no, ampak me veseli, da mi je ratal končno tudi enega na terenu na 2 mikrofona posnet. Ok, čist predolg intro, zdaj pa Erik. Sakaj, my first question, which is always the same. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I wish I could say my answer was always the same to that question, but it seems to change by the week. Well, Eric Jarosinski or Jarosinski or Jarosinski, it's pronounced various ways. And I used to be a German professor, taught modern literature and critical theory in the United States in Philadelphia. And now I guess I call myself something of a internet aphorist, and that means a guy who spends a lot of his day writing tweets and trying to make a living doing it.
We'll get to how you got here, but the thing is, because in your talk yesterday, right, you sort of mentioned trying to make a living out of it. And that's the way I do these talks is basically just talk to like internet-y people, right? Just people that actually sort of found their home on the internet.
Right.
And you apparently have, right? Or like, would you phrase it that way? Because you seem like internet native somehow.
That's funny you say that because I don't feel that way at all. I didn't have that much to do with the internet apart from work for many years. I was never someone who had a blog or even read blogs, any kind of writing online. I didn't do. I didn't read. I didn't get my news from the. I didn't read the internet. I mean, I read books. I didn't spend a lot of time on the internet apart from research stuff, watching movies, and the job of every professor these days, a lot of email all the time. And so for me, Twitter, which is sort of the medium that I found, was kind of an anomaly, and it was really just about the writing, and what I liked about it was that it was so simple. And Twitter has gotten more and more features over the last 3.5 years that I guess I've had to do with Twitter, and I kind of regret that it's gotten a little more sophisticated almost, because I liked a lot of the simplicity.
Well, but when you say it's simple, like usually when I try to get people on Twitter, they don't understand like any of it, right? Even the whole concept of you can follow somebody and they don't necessarily follow you back.
They don't? That's very rude.
No, but just that concept, in the age of like Facebook and stuff, like that's an odd concept for most people.
Yeah, I suppose it is. It's funny, but maybe it's just because I wasn't comparing it to anything, but that it seemed like sort of simple, intuitive rules to me. I don't know why, and that's usually not the case for technology for me. So,
well, yeah, because that was my next question. Because you said you weren't really like an internet guy, right?
Yeah.
Like of all the things to sort of latch on to, right? Twitter being one of them, that makes no sense to me. Honestly, it really. Like that, just because I always figured like you were like the guy at the office that spent most of his days. Like that's how I picture it, because I don't know how you get to be like that. I'm gonna say it now, that good on Twitter, right? Without sort of sort of having a progression to getting there, you know?
Well, no, but that I would say is definitely the case. That's true. But it's not because I was already sort of used to spending that much time online. It was actually quite disruptive to my life because, well, it's in some ways it was the end of my academic career because it was when I discovered Twitter, it was when I was struggling to write a book and not making much progress. And I found it was much more appealing to me to write tweets. And, well, I did it. I discovered in the last year I had to finish this book. And so I didn't necessarily make an official decision. I'm not going to write this book and I'm going to leave my job. But I made a de facto decision because what I did was I spent that much time on Twitter writing. And so it very much was a progression. That's true. Because you can look back, you can go through your archive and see what you first were writing, and I would not write that way now. I mean, it's a very different kind of style and a lot of things learned over time. So yeah, definitely a progression, but not one that I would have expected, I guess.
Well, but that's the way it's supposed to be, right? The early stuff's supposed to be crappier, right? That's I do this. Like I've done it. Like this, you're my 114th interview, right?
Okay.
Like I can't listen to the first 30 of them now. Like
I
just
can't even listen to this one either.
Well, yeah, when I get to like 250, right?
Right.
I think that's how it's supposed to work, right? You're supposed to be the same or not. Like, because I want to talk about the thing you mentioned a couple of times in your talk is like that voice, right? Which I got the sense you put a lot of effort into that. Right? Mm-hmm. So like how was that craft? Like how did that come about, right?
How did that come about? I think to some extent through just the amount of time that I spent doing it and sort of the instant feedback mechanism, of Twitter. Certainly instant feedback once there is a certain mass of people who are reading. And, it's important, I think, you can't measure somehow the quality of what you've written by the response. That's a response to a certain type of thing you've written, let's say. But I know if I was trying to write something that was sort of a one-liner joke, I mean, really specifically a joke and quick, if there isn't a response, you pretty much do know that did not work. And it usually means that the timing is off. I mean, it could be the idea is all right, but it's just the execution is bad. And often, when I go through someone's Twitter feed, I see it and I just want to edit it. I think great idea, but do this with it, do that with that. And in fact, there's a couple of places where I've spoken. Students were given this assignment of writing tweets, and I hadn't seen them, and they were put up, on a big screen behind me, and it was both really difficult to do in a way, but also I actually felt sort of competent kind of looking through it and thinking, yeah, I like this one. This is why I like that one. I don't like this one as much. This is why. And so I would say that some of it is sort of the trial and error of the feedback, but also some of it is just the amount of time that you spend. You get tired of doing one thing. You want to do something else. And so you start to experiment a little bit and see if you like doing it a different way or not. And so it's maybe it is how that's supposed to work. I'm not sure. Like
I follow your tweets, but I actually have like a bookmark to your profile, right? So I'm weird.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay.
Which that sounds creepy, but that's the way it is. No, the thing is like you've sort of settled into this rhythm where you have a couple of sort of versions of that voice, which you kind of go to, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, like, did that just come about naturally? Or like, that's the wrong question. Like, do you figure out I have a topic and I'm going to use that version of my voice to do that one? Like, you're that conscious of it when you're doing it, or you just try different stuff and then one of them works, I guess?
I guess I'm not so conscious of it that I've got a ready answer to that, but I'm sure I probably am somehow. And let me think. That's actually a difficult one to answer. I would say, though, that there are certain structures that I use for certain things that I don't use for others. And so if I know I'm kind of doing something which is about some sort of self-promoting thing, which you have to do a lot of when you're doing what I'm doing, and that's kind of the blessing and the curse of what I'm doing, is that I've got one channel, one Twitter feed for both my writing, let's say, and to do all of the promotional stuff where, I'm going to have this event, come to this event. And usually it doesn't make any difference to me how many people come, in the sense that most of these things are free, I'm not going to make any money or any more money, if it was a big crowd or a small one. But a lot of people have put time into it. And they've worked hard to do it, and so I want to help them get some people there because that's important for them. It's also just more fun, people are there. But so when I'm doing something like that, and there's a fair amount of that, it's a challenge because you don't want to annoy people, who are half a planet, halfway around the world, away from this little college in Ohio where you're talking.
Right.
But you also, that's the one channel you've got. And so to me, the trick is sort of, okay, how do I kind of do some sort of marketing thing, let's say, but make it interesting? And that's often a type of voice that I have to use and I've tried to develop, and it's a tricky one because for me, I'm trying to do a couple of different things at once, and neither one of them works all that well.
Well, yeah, but you see, that's the thing, because I figure, like, when I see those tweets, right, like the promotional stuff, where I'm not, like, when you were in, like, Zagreb and Ljubljana, I was like, giddy, right? But, like, when it's Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Like, you managed to somehow not make that douchey.
It's hard.
Right? I know, but like, I'm genuinely interested, like, how much thought goes into that.
A lot, actually.
Because, you're like this close, like I'm like really close to like just being that guy on the internet. But you travel that line like really well. Like.
It depends a lot. I have to say it's one of the biggest problems I've got right now. It's, well, because now there is a product, there is a book. It's not just a little audience here and there, and I'm under a fair amount of pressure, most of it, very much indirect, but I think publishers signed on to this book project thinking, well, you've got the marketing built in, you're going to sell this book for us. And that's the thing that what really started to weigh on me, and I've had to sort of check out of that, being concerned about that, because that was really no fun at all. I was not enjoying what I was doing very much anymore.
But don't you feel like you've actually earned that? Like, I know, like, when you like talk to corporate people, that's basically the way they phrase it. The marketing's built in, right?
Yeah.
But it's not really marketing when you've done it for, like, when the account's been up for so long and you've been consistent for so long. Like, you've actually earned the right to say, like, I wrote a book, just, like, buy it, right? I mean, that's how I feel.
Well, that's very generous of you to say. That's not the... I guess I write everything not assuming that's going to be the response, and often it's not. I mean, the things that actually I find cutting and that hurt me are sort of, the person who's gonna sort of slam you, for selling your crap, on something that used to be cool. Now you're selling your crap. No, I'm serious, and that happens all the time.
And you're an American. That's the thing I don't get. Like, honestly, I'd expect that more from like over here, right? That attitude. But I think in America, people like at least American like consumers, I guess, let's call them that, right? Are sort of more like they're like, I don't know, they're more willing to do that somehow. Or not. I mean, I'm genuinely interested in like what your experience.
Yeah, but this is the thing, though. I'm not just dealing with. I mean, first of all, I think that's already a little problematic because I think there's a wide range of responses in the U.S. to this, but also I'm dealing with people all over the world in their response. Yeah. And a lot of them, are people on Twitter who write just as well or better than I do, and they don't have a book. It's like, why do you, moron, have a book? When I don't have a book, and I can't justify that, and nor do I feel like I need to or want to, but you got to expect that. Like, somebody told me recently in Germany, someone who knows who knows German Twitter and so on, it's like, oh yes, as soon as you have a book, they all hate you, And basically, I never really wanted to say that or think that, but it's like, yeah, I think that probably is about right. And that's tricky. And I kind of assume that is the response. And so I'm sort of shy and embarrassed about doing the promotion at the same time that I feel a certain responsibility to, if that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense. The thing I sort of have a problem with that is that, well, like, if you have a problem with it, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about those things, then the douchebags, right, that basically just do that. like they have no soul then. Like that. Do you understand? Like you're doing this the right way. I don't know what exactly that is. Like, just deal with it. I said it. Okay. I'm just saying like there's people that just want to flog their book basically, right? You don't really do that, right?
Well,
I'm being like way too kind now, I think, but like I think that's the actual truth. Because you're like on one end of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. And then there's this other side of Twitter where it's just guys with self-help books. Yeah. And, you know, they follow 45,000 people, so 45,000 people will follow them back.
Yeah.
Like you're not that.
Yeah, but this is the thing, though. It is a tricky position because this is the thing right now is that for a lot of people, you know, you get that response that and it's not that heavy response, you know, it's so negative towards the, you know, promotion of an event or hey, here's my book. But the problem is that when that happens at all, it confirms my worst fears you know, about myself. It's well, I don't know. Last night I got home after this is my first visit to Slovenia. An event comes up, you know, out of nowhere, last minute, because some very kind people kind of put a lot of work into something, you know, very quickly. And they arranged a whole lot of things for me to do. I was busy yesterday, like 7-8 interviews with Slovenian media. Like I felt like the new dictator, you know, of Slovenia. I am on every channel. And I was asked to explain the world, you know, on every channel. Like, say something about our borders, about the fence, say something about the fence. And you're thinking, God, fuck. I mean, that's the complicated. I've got some thoughts, but and so you fight your way through that day trying to do that and trying to go along with it. And the whole time you're thinking, I don't think I've really got much to say about any of this. I don't know that much about it, but I will try. And then you get home and you get some asshole, you know, on Twitter say, "Oh, it's just a job to you now, isn't it?" I'm serious. That happened to me last night when I got home, and I'm like, God, it's like, oh. Okay, but I mean, in a way, yes, but it's not as if that's his great pleasure somehow necessarily to do all that stuff. I mean, it's an opportunity, I guess, but also feels like responsibility, and it's something that is not easy, and again, it's just one person and one little voice, you know, but it's just like, oh, that's not what you wanted to see right then, you know, like that.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
And so that's part of the issue for me right now is kind of sorting that out. And I'm sure that most people who have ever tried to do this, who then kind of have a thing to sell, you know, are faced by that same issue. And before having the thing to sell, it was dealing with the publishers. And it wasn't that they were messing around with the content. It was that they were going to market you in their way, and they used a standard marketing language that I hated. I mean, it's just like the super phenomenal Twitter star, you know, now has a super phenomenal Twitter star book, right? And all you could think is, no, don't do it that way. I mean, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, when that machinery gets going, it can be pretty.
Well, that's the thing. I was fought it for months, all kinds of back and forth about that, and I've just sort of, no, it's the best I could do is kind of tone that down was the best I could do. Because it's also very hard to make a counter argument because what do I know about publishing, right? What do I know? I mean, really,
no,
I don't have
totally
any.
Understand
I've got
that.
nothing to base this on except my sense that I don't think that's how you market a, you know, gently quasi countercultural product. I don't think that's how that works. You know, you need to market this. You want to buy this book because it'll make you miserable. You know, you need to buy this book to give to someone you do not like. You know, I mean, you have to stick with the voice of the thing itself. Yeah. But that was kind of too radical a notion. And for me, then it was took a lot of energy in the back and forth about that. And it made for the most unpleasant months of doing this in the last 3.5 years for me.
Oh, I can imagine that, yeah.
But at the same time, you also feel bad, you know, somehow kind of complaining about that because you've got an opportunity a lot of people will never get.
Well, yeah, but you have to fight the machine, right? I mean, that's
sure.
You know, well, yeah, you say sure, and sort of, I guess it's obvious to us, right? But there's people that went that route and never had any of those qualms. You know that, right?
Well, maybe, but this is also the other perspective, though, is that You know, this little talk I gave yesterday, which is a version of something that I talk about a fair amount. I talk about it in certain extremes about, thanking my publishers for their great ideas, about how to sell the book, right? And I've especially liked it because my publishers have been in the audience a couple of times, when I talked about it this way. But it was the only way I could do it because I had to find some way to kind of voice the frustrations that I probably are inherently part of that process, in a way that one might be entertaining or interesting to somebody, and also to not be kind of whiny about it like I am being right now. I mean, but a way to actually maybe tell the story a little bit in a more interesting way, and also to speak to sort of the ambivalence that anybody's going to have, I think, with that kind of a process. Because I would say even those that you're talking about sort of who just fully embrace that and they don't have... You don't know that. I mean, because there's a lot of that stuff that I think people could very much have, but I feel like, but this has to be part of the performance. Is that I'm not going to talk about that stuff.
Well, okay, fair point. But you don't have 120. You don't follow 120,000 people.
Yeah, but right? But let me speak to that too. I follow 8,000 people. Do you think I can read 8,000 Twitter feeds?
No, of course not. But that's my point. You didn't you didn't do the thing where you just followed people so you get follow backs.
I didn't, but there's another side of that though that I don't like, which is big accounts that don't follow anybody.
Okay, that is true.
That makes me angry because it's sort of, and that's why I follow 8,000 people. It's sort of anyone who's contributed something that's a good joke. Or or they've helped advertise, a show. I think I followed you just the other day. Maybe I have for a long time. Yeah. You wrote a great tweet, about my thing. It was something like 9 Quarterly's coming. I think it's a death metal band. I've never heard of them. Big on Twitter. It was awesome. And it's like, this guy is good. I want to follow this guy. And that would be a classic example, right? I'll probably never read another tweet of yours again.
I know. And I'm fully aware of that. But there's a different, you see, the point I'm trying to make is that you sort of, even the angst you have about all of this stuff, right, just makes me think, all of the signals, even the 8,000 versus 120,000, people you could follow, right? All of those signals, at least to me, make it seem like you're doing this from, a good place, or maybe at least you're trying to do it right? And then you stumble, and that's fine, because we're all human, right? But but I think that's all the difference that's needed, right? See, that's my point. I think if you just come from a good place and sort of try and do it right, and then mess up in between because you're gonna, right? That's okay. That's I think the best way to do anything on the internet. Because everything else is either you're too marketingy and basically just a douchebag that has an account, right? Or you're just really counterculture and you have 3 followers. Those guys, basically natural selection takes care of that, right?
Yeah.
I think because that tension there, that's the way to do it. And that's why I sort of like your account.
I see.
And the fact that you're in turmoil almost when I ask you that just makes me feel a hell of a lot better about the whole thing.
No, no, it's funny because, I guess I haven't had anyone put it that way, but that is very much what I've been trying to do. But I've also learned how difficult that is to do.
It's tough as hell, man.
I have to say the only people I've talked to who seem to understand this a little bit have been musicians that I've talked to. They seem to understand sort of exactly this thing, because a lot of what they do is they gain an audience somehow or another. Usually, they're doing good work, but then they connect to some kind of a channel that gets them beyond the 3 people, come to a show at a bar. And then they're faced pretty quickly by the pressure of, okay, some opportunities are coming up. Do we do them? Do we not do them? To what extent can we remain true to what we're doing? And do this. And also, if they're on Twitter, they have to use it just like I do, and a lot because they're making a living, if they are at all at it, by touring, and they need this internet presence, to do that. But also, they know people don't like seeing that stuff. And so how do you manage that? And so those are the folks I've probably heard the most from that has sort of helped me out to consider it. But no, I appreciate your perspective, because it's That has been the goal, and there have been stumbles, but you're making it seem like maybe that's all right.
Yeah,
so I appreciate that.
No, but honestly, that's how I feel, because I think the sort of struggle with that is the way to go do it. Because like you have to sell out the right way, right? I mean, and not meaning that you actually sell out, but like that's the thing, that you have to fight the machine a little and then go over.
Well, I think sell out the right way is probably. Again, I've never put in those terms that are probably the best way of putting it, because what I did for a while. See, I started to get the sellout things a long time ago when there was like the first newspaper article or something, and especially I found this very harsh among a number of German followers. It's like, let me do my bad German accent now. It's like,
I love the bad.
Oh, you were covered by the Frankfurter Allgemeine. It is time to unfollow you. I'm serious.
I know. Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, all right. I'll kind of miss you, I guess, but I mean that just kind of sucks,
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, but that's one of the things to figure out. And honestly, right now, it's one of the things that's making me wonder how much longer I can do it, because it's not a lot of fun to walk around with that tension all the time.
Yeah, but I think your skin gets thicker.
Well, this is also a fear, though, of mine, because I know you need a thick skin if you've got a bigger audience. And I've learned that early on, because as soon as I got a little bit bigger, people started to refer to me as they. There was much more distance. They're talking to their friends, mentioning you, like, they used to be good, now they suck, whatever it is. And you're just sitting there on the bus, and on your phone, it's like, it's like, bam, bam. It's like, yeah, you need a thick skin for that. But at the same time, what it is I liked about this, and I even hate putting in the past tense, but in some ways I have to, is that Twitter for me was sort of the way out of a certain alienation I had from my job. I mean, this is where, irony of ironies, but, some sort of postmodernists would say this is completely appropriate, through a persona, that I somehow was able to be more myself and come and do something that's closer to my heart somehow. And so in getting a thick skin, the fear has been I also lose touch with that thing, that has kept it alive for me.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, like, the thick skin is just for the mean people, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's how it's supposed to work, right? Like, at some point, you don't mind the mean people and basically take notice of, let's
just say I'm not at that point yet, but I think that probably is the thing that you need to do, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it looks like at the end of the tunnel. Like, I have to believe that, honestly.
I'm assuming you're a man that many people hate.
Probably. Like, no, but you see, who said that? Like, I know that's not really comparable. Like, I think it was Ricky Gervais. Do you know who Ricky Gervais is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so Ricky Gervais said, like, when The Office was really getting big, like, and the British one, before the American one, like. And he said, like, he gets, like, means that it's boring, it's just like a fake documentary, who cares, you're a loser, right? He used to get that stuff. And he basically just said, like, I knew that when I was making it. Like, when I was going to do my thing, right, there are going to be more people that are going to hate it than people that are actually going to love it. So I sort of just focus on the people that actually like my work and maybe, like, do some constructive criticism, right? But, like, even, like, you actually have an international following, right? A proper one.
I guess so. I mean, I haven't wanted to look at the breakdown any more specifically than the very general one you get, and I haven't looked at that in a while, probably a year and a half ago or longer at this point. And it was a big chunk in the U.S., a big chunk in Germany and the UK, and then it was many, many little slivers of numerous countries. And I thought that was an interesting sort of way in which that
Especially
panned out.
The UK and Germany connection is weird, because like sort of the America-Germany thing I sort of get, right? But like those three in Congress.
Well, but this is the thing, though, and this is another factor, something I'm always nervous about, and sort of, obviously, that your follower count, a big follower count, is sort of your entree into some type of legitimacy. I mean, when you do these interviews, that is the way in which you're always set up. It's like we have to make it clear why we're talking to this guy from the internet, right? It's like I understand all of that. But the other thing is there are factors involved in that. I mainly tweet in English. That all of a sudden, you're going to have a bigger audience. You have the potential for one much more easily.
I call that cheating if you're from Slovenia.
Yeah, but this is true though, and this has to be taken into account. And I hope people understand that I realize that, because that changes everything in terms of that language. And so in that respect, it doesn't really surprise me. I mean, the other thing is that from the bit that I could see there as well, it's all just clustered around some, a few cities, in these places as well. And that also has to do with, again, a certain type of person who's following, which for me, I would say, again, I haven't really wanted to have great specifics, but you get this very general breakdown, and I think gender-wise was sort of 50-50. I was pleased to see that.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was surprised. I wonder if that's still the case, but that was when I went.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome, because it's the internet, and that's usually not the case.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was really surprised to see that, and happy to see it. And then the other thing was, my general sense is that these are people who are usually older than student age, because that has something to do with the Twitter demographic, which I think is a bit older now anyway, at least in the United States. I've noticed that, because when I've gone to university, it's funny, is these professors invite me, it's like, something cool for the kids, right? And then the kids come like, Twitter?
Everybody's on Snapchat now.
Yeah, it's like, okay, some old guy is going to come and, explain the internet, and he's going to talk about jokes about things that we don't think are very funny, on the internet. So the old guy comes, from the Twitter, and now I know that, and now I know to expect it, and so it's a matter of, in the beginning, I didn't realize this was the case, but now I know, and I think most people are following a little bit older, and they often have studied something in the humanities, language, literature, whatever, and they've gone into jobs in which they're not professional, academics, but they're still interested. And I think that's the bulk of people as well who are following this thing. And there are a lot of those people simply. And I would say, if anything, that's what I keep in mind when I'm writing, is if there is some inside joke about something very specific to philosophy or something, my own field or German stuff, I do give it some thought. Like, I don't want the next thing to be also like that. Oh, right, okay. It's sort of, I definitely try to mix that up as well, because to me that's not a measure, because it actually bothers me when someone say like, I'm too dumb for that, or something. It's like, no, that's just a very specific thing, a very specific language about a very specific thing.
But you do put thought into it, so the next thing is sort of something different. Okay.
Yeah, and it's mainly because I don't want people to have that feeling about it. It's just because the whole project, if I were to think about it in these terms, was the first question I always say is, well, this is called no. What are you saying no to? And it could be anything, but I would say the main thing is saying no to whatever it is that made me so nervous and not have any confidence about the academic work I was doing and the writing I was doing. And it wasn't just the writing. I mean, I walked around that job just feeling stupid. Like, I don't know enough to do this job.
Oh, okay.
Because I always felt like I was on very thin ice. Like, I think I'm not stupid, but I don't walk around with this great wealth of knowledge. I can come up with some ideas, about something, but I don't have anything firm to kind of latch onto. It's like, for instance, it's very reminiscent, of this strain of thought shortly after the French Revolution. It's like,
you need that jacket with the thing on the...
I wish I could call upon that, but I don't have it. And so a lot of this was directed towards the sense of, you don't have to be afraid of difficult ideas. It doesn't mean that you're going to make them simple, or someone can make them simple. But if you're afraid of dealing with them, you're never going to get anything out of them, and you're cheating yourself in a way.
That's a big part for you, right? Just sort of, I guess, like opening the door to sort of philosophy a little. Right. That is definitely a part of it.
Well, I've been trying to open it for myself as a thing. It's, the greatest gift of leaving the academy for me is that I like to read again. And that's a wonderful thing. I hope that lasts. Right now it's kind of a novelty because it's It's not a matter of, most of the reading I was doing was research stuff, underlining everything, that I'd never go back to. And then also my memory isn't that great. So when I was teaching, I always had to reread every text I was teaching. And that usually meant, because I'm a great procrastinator, put off to very late and then reading very, very quickly in a very pressured way. And every academic knows that, I'm sure. And so for me, I've kind of enjoyed now a different engagement in which the stakes are much lower. But ideas still find their way into, tweets, obviously, but also into, the couple of other things I've written, like shorter essay things. It's like, that's actually a good idea that I could build that into this thing I'm writing. And then I think about it as something that I can somehow, ideas that I can somehow use to think through or with, rather than things that I have to somehow rise to the level of and master. I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah. But for me, it's a very different conception. And it's the conception I would have liked to have had when I was, thinking professionally, right?
At your job.
Yeah, but not, and so, it's, so it is a big part of it for me, that idea of opening the door, but also for myself.
Okay, and then I just have one more question about the sort of the form and that whole crafting of it. Yeah, like most of it, like, at least certain amount of your tweets are sort of like really dense. And I don't really know how to explain that, but you're sort of like, when you see that picture, and I know that's the point, right? You have to see that picture to go with whatever my version of that man's voice is, I guess.
Yeah.
But like there's sort of like, there's 140 characters, but I always feel like there's like a paragraph before the tweet, right? That's how I read it. Like that's...
you should. You should.
But how was that by design? Like, how does that happen? I'm sort of hoping you tell me something I'll be able to use. But like, how do you get?
It's not. It doesn't take much. What it primarily is a form of address that you actually speak to somebody, and you assume that you have been speaking to them already. And what you're doing is you are, in a way, interrupting or adding something to a conversation that you were in the midst of having. And that means you're kind of gesturing towards, well, yes, we've been talking about this, but,
Yeah.
And that's what I like. And I mainly like it because, the greatest of the greats of writing aphorisms and the tradition of it, Nietzsche, whatever, some of those still... And a lot of people adopt this in their tweets, and people like these tweets, but I don't like to read them, which have the tone of, attention, I'm going to give you the universal truth about something.
Yeah, because there's a difference there, right? Yeah.
And I hate that tone.
The same, yeah.
I hate the tone. I mean, those things could be brilliant as an idea, and they could be really well crafted.
But they're from a high horse, basically.
Yeah, I don't like the tone. Yeah. I don't like the tone.
Yes.
What I like, and that's why I like the idea that, well, of course you know this, but, or an interruption, or the idea that, well, you're thinking about this too, let me add this. But mainly the whole gesture has been one of, there's sort of a gesture that I know in American culture. So, well, what do I know but? It's sort of, I'm not going to claim this great authority about this thing, but I'm going to say the following about it anyway.
Okay.
Right? And that's
very American.
And that well, that is actually the thing that's made it possible for me to do what I do.
Okay.
Is exactly that.
Yeah.
Because now, especially the writing I'm doing for newspapers, I'm commenting on, like right now, I've got to, right after this, I've got to write jokes, a column about Dutch domestic politics. All right. I follow Dutch politics now. And for the Dutch paper I write for. Okay?
That's the weirdest sense. Okay.
Sure. And so, I lived there for a short time, but not that long. I speak the language okay, but not that great. And I'm not an expert on any of that stuff. What I'm trying to do, though, is say, well, but as somebody who's been reading the papers this morning, You know, because honestly, no, I'm not doing it every day. But as someone who's read the paper this morning, I'm going to
tell me something about the fence.
I'm going to say, yeah. Essentially, you're right. It's every week. I'm going to say something about the fence you built. You know, whether it's between your rich and your poor, or whoever it happens to be, or the Dutch are somehow trying to figure out how to build a fence between them and Slovenia. You know, it's going to cover a few countries. But damn it, it's going to separate you. But there's, so essentially it's that. And I didn't know if I could do that at the beginning. And the only way I was able to do it was to say, okay, I didn't make them, ask me to do this. If they think I can, I'm going to give it a try. But it's going to have sort of a bit of that tone of I'm going to say something, but I know very well that it is subject to criticism and should be, because this is going to be, in a way, I kind of want to be a bit like the drunk in the bar, who has something to say. He's not dumb. Well, this is funny. The more I think about it, the more I think this is a completely apt character sketch of me, because I want to say like an old, broken-down former professor drunk in a bar,
just mid-conversation.
Yeah, who's saying like, hey, you know what's wrong with the world today? It's the fence.
It's the fence. It's always the fence.
It's a little bit like that. That's probably is actually the main thing that's going on in my brain is the shouting, drunk, guy professor about the fence, and then filter through the crafting of how do I write this in a way I want to write it.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably how it works. First and foremost.
Okay, awesome. The whole interrupting thing, I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah, well, also that's I mean, one of the things I've done for a very long time, a gentle reminder about something. Well, that gentle reminder is essentially setting off what it is I'm going to say from that kind of maxim sound, Because if you got rid of that, you will often have what is like a truth.
Yeah.
A truth or something stated like one.
Yeah. The quotes on Instagram.
Yeah, and this is my way around it. Or we regret to inform you. These things both came about.
I love just friends, comma.
That's the other thing. Yeah. Because that, to me, those are all ways in which you are establishing, one, a connection to people you're talking to, but also you are removing yourself, as you put it, from that sort of high horse position. And that changes a lot. I mean, it changes the tone of what you write after it. It also brings about a certain contrast in it, because you might start with friends, but basically you're saying, you guys are assholes, But also it's a way in which you simply acknowledge there is another conversation going on. There are millions of conversations going on. I'm going to throw in something. This is not the only thing you're reading. Most of you don't have a bookmark. Most of you don't go home after your interviews and do a cross stitch of a tweet of some sort. But this is just one thing among many things, and I think that would probably be why you get that sense that there's something that came before it and something that come after it, because it's thought of often as an interjection into something else.
Oh, that was okay. Awesome answer. That you're not supposed to say that when you interview.
Well, it was a long answer.
Yeah, but that was a good one. So I'm just going to acknowledge that for no reason. Right. Okay, so now we're going to go to the last three questions of this thing, which is the first one is your hardware, which basically means which phone and computer you use. Okay.
Well, right now I've used an iPhone since I've had a smartphone. And for as many problems as I have with Apple and I've had with my iPhones in the past, because I've had very bad iPhones technically, is that the smartphone in general, if it weren't for that, I wouldn't be here right now. I would never have had anything to do with Twitter if it weren't for that. I would never sit at a laptop and write tweets. It's always a matter of being mobile with the thing. And when I'm doing something else and it occurs to me to look at it, to write something. And this software is an interesting question, because for that, I just use the Twitter app, Twitter's own app primarily, although I don't think it's the best one.
It's the worst one, but it's the only one that's actually real time.
Is that the difference?
Yes, because they really sort of like the third-party developers get tokens from Twitter, so they all just get have 100,000 users.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to make money that way.
I see.
And on top of that, like all of the APIs, like the functionality and stuff, it's not available to the third-party developers. Not all of it, right?
Okay.
So that's why, like, I use the third-party one for a long time, and like the last couple of months, I've just gone to the native one because, like, it. Sort of the functionality that's native works better because it's a native client, but I wish they just let the other people do stuff.
Yeah, it's true. Because the other thing is that I tried one of these other ones very briefly. I just didn't like the way it looked because I was used to seeing it one way.
Oh, okay.
I was used to seeing like the white background, the whatever, and then I saw this other thing. I was like, wow, this looks completely different. And so. But it's gotten a little more stable. It used to crash just all the time, and so many, and all kinds of weird things would happen with it. And we all know the kind of social problems this has caused for people. I mean, Twitter had a bug for a long time, automatically unfollowing people.
Yep.
I've had it block people. I had a friend, a real friend in real life, before Twitter, and blocked her. Just and I got this email like, what's going on? What did I do? It was really, and I have no idea. And that's not the only time that's happened.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
and that is some crazy stuff because that there are people out there right now, who have a grudge against each other because of some technical glitch, and they'll never know this.
And on a platform that's supposed to do the exact opposite, like make it clear. Yeah.
But the other software is simply. Now, when I go home to write about the Dutch fence, I'll their fences all separate them from the water primarily. Yeah. But I will use on the iPhone the very stupid basic notepad function. It's just this little, yellow pad is what it's made to look like. And
you actually write the columns on that as well.
Yeah, well, that being said, the column is 4 lines long.
Well, okay, but still,
but it's where I write everything on. So actually, the things I've written recently that have been 2 pages, 3 pages long. That's also what I've used, and
it's all on the iPhone.
Yeah, it's like and it's using that notepad thing usually. It's and I like it because it's so basic. It's sort of one of the earliest word processors. It's. And so I just got into the habit of using that, and that's what I use now. Otherwise, apps and so on, a lot of news apps. So I like. I never thought I'd be someone who read a lot of news online or on my phone, whatever. And I found that the apps help me a lot. And so I use Spiegel Online a lot. That's a good one for German news, very up to date. Lots of newspapers apps I use. The Economist has a good one.
The Espresso
things. Yeah, they've got a lot of things actually.
The foreign guest I had on before you was the digital editor of The Economist.
Is that so?
Yeah, Tom Standage.
Ah, sure. Okay. Yeah, because I was at The Economist over the summer. Those are really interesting people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny, I had this conversation with someone last night because when I talk about people who are doing sort of news accounts or whatever, I say, you need to look at The Economist. I think they do it the best.
Yeah. But they do cheat. Right?
How do you say that?
Well, the same way you cheat, right? Because they're a British operation that sells a lot of stuff in America.
Okay. Well, well, they know that.
Yeah, I know. I talked to Tom about it, and
yeah. No, exactly. But I would say the other thing about them, what they do so very well is. One, they're not afraid of repeating stuff because they know that Twitter's hit or miss.
Yep.
No one's reading everything, but they know how to pitch and repitch things. They pull out different angles of the same story.
Yeah, that's what I run the Twitter account for the magazine I work for, Medina.
Okay.
And I'm sort of,
yeah, and that's very well done. And also, they know how to use their archive. Something's going on today. They look, what have we written about this in the last 5 years?
Yeah, we do the same thing.
And they often pull out really great stuff that you want in exactly that moment. They also, of course, understood, I think, very quickly, they have all their charts and graphs. These are great for Twitter. Yeah. They work very well because your attention is drawn to them right away. They're the kind of quick information that people want to share, all that stuff.
Some old media stuff is really great for social media, basically. It really works.
Yeah. So those are the things I primarily use.
Okay, then my last question, which is also always the same. If you had to pick one physical thing that is not a human being, right, that you think was made for you, you might still have it, you might not, right? What would that be?
I actually have several of them.
You have to pick the one.
No, but it's the same model, the same thing. No, it's a German mechanical pencil.
Okay.
It's a Lamy, Lamy is the brand, Scribble, I think it's called.
Oh, okay.
And I once bought many of them because there was a rumor that they were going to stop making them.
Oh, okay.
And I had some money in my research account, and I bought as many of these as I could because what I like about it, it's this. I never used mechanical pencils because I always felt like they were too small, somehow fragile. And if I didn't underline when I'm reading, I couldn't read anything. And a lot of these scribbles here, because it's so thick, it's like a piece of chalk,
Okay.
But it's still a mechanical pencil. So it's like a mechanical pencil a caveman, could use with a very clumsy one. And that's what I like about it. So that would be the object that I kind of have to have.
Oh, great. Because I just bought a Japanese one for myself, like a mechanical pencil. Yeah.
All right, well, try the scribbles sometime,
Okay,
because they
I'll
are
look into
still
that.
making them. I think that was just a rumor that was spread around by the company to make people like me who fetishize this object buy many of them.
I have a friend in England, just like that's the last thing I'm going to say, that has a podcast that now has, I think, like over 250 episodes, which is called The Pen Addict.
Okay.
And it's two guys talking about pencils, pens, and paper.
What are they really talking about?
Defense, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
A genuine pleasure. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Tole je bila 114. epizoda Aparatusa. Erika valjda najdete na Twitterju pod @nain_quarterly. Je valjda tudi link v zapiskih. Pejte ga poslediti. Dejansko so smešni tviti. Ne vas ne odvrne to, da kao o filozofiji tvita, ker pač res ne. Tako da še enkrat ful hvala živi. Hvala Radio Terminal. Hvala vsem, ki ste podprli. Jaz sem na Twitterju @afnan_zet, tako da mi lahko tam težite. Ful hvala, ki ste poslušali. To je da naslednjič to. Adijo.